Happy birthday, Watson. Happy birthday, Watson. Happy birthday, Watson. Health.
Health.
Happy birthday, Watson. Health. Health. Hey, everybody. Thank you, and welcome to another exciting edition of MedHeads. Or I guess more appropriately for this conversation, yes. So I know it's not Watson's birthday just yet, right? We're a couple months away, but I thought now is an appropriate time to celebrate the birth of Watson Health here with a special edition of MedHeads, MedCityNews.com's regular conversation on innovation in healthcare. We had a huge deal happen in healthcare around Watson, and so we're going to talk about that big deal. We're going to talk about the year of Watson Health. Since it was born at HIMSS last year, and HIMSS is just around the corner, although we know that HIMSS last year was in April, so we're not being totally intellectually honest, but so be it. But we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about what should come next for Watson Health, and really give it a review. Hold on, let me blow out my candle here real quick. Okay, now here to join us to talk about Watson Health is our two health IT digital health experts at MedCity News in the beautiful city of Philadelphia. Is Stephanie Baum. Stephanie, how are you today?
Doing as well as I can be.
All right, and in the beautiful city of Chicago, last year's home of HIMSS is Neil Versel, who writes about health IT for MedCity News. Neil, how's life?
Oh, it's fantastic. There's nothing like spending all your time answering emails and working on a schedule for HIMSS, but we'll get to that later. It's been a good week in health IT, though.
No doubt. And so let's start with it, Neil. You wrote the story this week for us, and it was one of the big, it cut across all verticals, all media interest, and it was discussing IBM Watson Health's acquisition of Truven Analytics.
Truven Health Analytics for $2.6 billion, which is more than all other Watson Health acquisitions to date combined. The $2.6 billion is what really made it a big deal. Everybody thought that when Watson acquired Merge Healthcare last summer, I believe it was, for $1 billion, that was really making a splash. But this is 1.5 times bigger than that in terms of the dollar figure.
So, but is it just about the dollars? I mean, so no. Let's recap. I mean, yeah. They bought Merge. They bought, and I guess we can do some math here. They bought Explorus and is Fitel, I guess we're at $400 million or ballpark in there, because they said they did $4 billion now in health acquisitions.
Correct.
And then $2.6 billion in Truven.
And they've had a few other smaller acquisitions as well, but those are the 4 big ones.
So why spend all this money on Truven? Isn't Watson enough?
Well, they want the data. They want the health data. They want a complete picture of the health data, and Truven gives them an entree to the payer side, because Truven has 4 petabytes, of claims data, as well as hundreds of scientists, which is what IBM Watson Health's Vice President, Dr. Anil Jain, told me, that they were interested in getting the expertise from their hundreds of data scientists. But
well, I mean, and I think it's fair. We once said that really Watson Health is like the hungry mongry of healthcare, right? I mean, it's got this big brain, and it's got to consume all of these. It's got to consume data to be useful.
Yes.
Is this the ultimate meal for Watson?
It's a very big meal. I mean, this is like Thanksgiving.
Okay. And so how do they connect the dots here for us? Okay, how are they going to use Truven and Merge and their earlier acquisitions together to do something in healthcare?
Right. Well, Merge gives them images. Okay. The other two, Fitel and Explorus. Well, Explorus was population health, and Fitel gave them some IT, some health IT that they didn't have, possibly, getting them back into. Well, actually, the Merge deal got them back into EHRs along the edges, because Merge has EHRs for imaging purposes. But what it does is it gives them data in all domains of healthcare. And what Patrick Soon-Shiong of very strong competitor NetHealth said, he identified 3 domains: knowledge, care delivery, and payers.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like with this new acquisition, IBM Watson now has all of those.
Yeah, but Stephanie, I mean, I'll bring you in. I mean, this is a lot of money to throw at it, but what does IBM Watson Health have to show for it?
I would say a lot of experimentation, a lot of collaboration, interesting collaborations, but not a lot of, this is a product that's ready for market. It's basically a big mine of data they can tap and apply their machine learning tools to crunch out potential solutions. For example, they could use their imaging from the Person-Emergent Healthcare to analyze images and look for things like tumors, and maybe they can come up with some insights about, well, people with this particular profile, with this particular tumor, deserve this particular treatment as a clinical support tool. But it feels like it's more like a data arms race that they're having with the likes of Optum, with the likes of Google, to just see how much data they can collect, and with down the road maybe figure out a way to charge for it. But it just seems like it's almost too early to really say what the outcome of all these acquisitions is going to be.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, I think that last year at HIMSS, when they announced Watson Health, I wrote that IBM Watson had finally found a true purpose in healthcare, because they had been digging around in healthcare long before a year ago, right? I mean, you would see them at every conference, and they would be simply listening or making partnerships. And they made partnerships in health with Apple. They've done it with Medtronic. They've done it with J&J, and they were just kind of nosing around. I even told a story that when MedCity News was an independent company, their venture arm took a meeting largely because they were interested in ingesting any kind of content, including journalistic content. And so there was this constant search for Watson for years before last year, to find data and find purpose. And we thought that with the announcement of Watson Health, there would be a driving purpose. I mean, I'd argue, and I want to hear back from you, the only driving purpose that I've seen Watson do for this whole 10 months has been to buy companies that can give Watson data, digital nourishment, if you will. Go, Neil. You go react to that, Neil, and then Stephanie next.
Okay, you're asking me.
Yeah.
What?
And that's what react to what I just said. I mean, I just think that if we're looking at what's the accomplishment of Watson this year, of Watson Health in the last year, it's only been to buy companies to stick stuff inside Watson. It really isn't any deliverable that healthcare can say, wow, this is how Watson Health is making a difference. And they do have oncology programs and other things going.
Yeah, they do have a few. Yeah, there are a few pilots going on showing their early results, but nothing really huge yet. I mean, right now it's just potential. And I likened the arms race to their competitor in the arms race to Nant Health. I thought. Now Stephanie made good points with Google and Optum and.
Talk about Nant. Talk about Nant's company.
Okay, but Nant said that Patrick Soon-Shiong himself said it kind of caps off a 10-year vision that he had to bring these 3 domains together, knowledge, clinical information, and claims data. So it took 10 years to get all that, 10 years and several $1 billion to do that. And as rich as Patrick Soon-Shiong is, IBM has much deeper pockets because it's a mega corporation. It's Fortune 500. I believe it's still a Dow component. It's now they have the pieces in place, and they haven't said yet. In fact, I asked them point blank, how long is it going to take to integrate all this onto the Watson Health Cloud? And they said it's going to take some time. They didn't give me an exact answer. This deal isn't done yet. It was just announced, but they have to go through the process of closing it and all that. But right now, the papers have been signed, but the deal hasn't closed yet. So all this data needs to be migrated onto the Watson platform. And then you gotta find applications for it, which I'm sure they've thought about. But again, this is still really early in the game.
Stephanie, what about you? I mean, again, is Watson's signature achievement for the last 10 to 12 months that they simply bought stuff that they can use when they figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, I find that a hard question to answer in some ways because it seems, although on the surface it seems like that's all they're doing is just trying to corner the market on patient data. They have tried to show how it can be used in, even with the likes of Under Armour and helping using their fitness tracking data and their sensor data to show how people can improve their performance and in part that's by aggregating a bunch of data. I mean, if you look at the most useful applications of big data, the analytical point of it is, sorry, let me phrase that. Basically, the companies that seem to be the most disruptive in this space are the ones that are aggregating data so people can see how their diet, their fitness, their different behaviors impact on their overall health. And those are the differentiators, it seems to me. And although IBM seems to be interested in that area, it's just to show how their machine learning can be applied to patients to find patterns. It's an incomplete picture so far.
Yeah. I wonder if a lot of this data arms race isn't a money grab for a lot of companies. Some may be doing the right things, but let's face it, the data is extremely valuable, and and a lot of them are looking toward maximizing value of the company. I mean, Nant has said that they're going to have an IPO this year. They put it off, in fact, before they closed their last purchase of IMS Health. So I think, and obviously, Optum has been been huge for United Healthcare.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I think that a lot of people, just because we've seen Watson talk to Bob Dylan, right, that we think that this is this unstoppable behemoth of brilliance and it's one jeopardy. But you're listing other major competitors whose teams, at least, have more experience in healthcare. Optum is the #1, I think, on that. And then you've also got other organizations that are, you would argue, maybe more nimble in the cloud, right? A Google
and
or
by the way,
and
by the way, just to show how valuable the data side of things is, Optum was founded by a certain Andy Slavitt, who is now running CMS.
He might know something.
He might
know a little bit, right?
Yeah.
He might know a little bit, yeah.
So now, so CMS decided to go out and at least on an interim basis right now, or acting basis, they decided to go out and get a data guy to run things.
Yeah, but I think that we pay a lot of attention to Watson because IBM has a ton of cash, and so they can buy their way into things that other companies simply could not, right?
Right.
A lot of companies can't do $4 billion in acquisitions over the course of a year, right? But it does seem also that while maybe the general public is still awed or interested in Watson, that in healthcare it really still remains just another competitor with a Nant, with an Optum, with probably smaller players that can take pieces and probably do things better. Stephanie, what do you think about that as far as IBM as a leader in this kind of analytics, or others being in there? I think we've lost Stephanie. I think she's frozen in time.
Frozen in time. It's that Philadelphia Wi-Fi again.
She's been in. Okay, well, so you. I mean, is
the advantage of some of.
There we go. Sorry, Stephanie.
Yeah, very cool. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Can you? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Stephanie, go please for the.
Okay.
All the thousands of.
Okay, fine.
Caller, you're on the air.
Every word, right. Now, I think the advantage that smaller companies have is that they can zone in on a smaller particular need analytics, which is a startup that is crunching that has a machine learning tool that analyzes images for radiologists. That is basically a clinical decision support tool for them. And the likes of a Valytic that is basically providing an infrastructure that is helping other companies aggregate data because using wearables is losing traffic. I don't know if that really answers your question.
It does answer it, and I also think, you know, I think one thing that I took away from HIMSS and I think others last year, I do wonder if small people who can do one thing well are going to be favored over giant enterprise opportunities that need to have full penetration in a health system. And I think that you know, so many companies, the big brand names, are creating these huge, comprehensive builds or system-wide opportunities that most health systems don't want a piece of that at all. They don't want to have to do 16 different things with one person because of the size and the scope, the risk, the disruption in work, right? And when you instead have somebody that maybe is smaller or more nimble, and maybe they're not Watson, right? But maybe they're not Watson, and that might be the point. And that a smaller organization that simply does data well and neatly and that can live in your current environment and doesn't require a monster, it's going to be a monster spend no matter how you do it. But you know, I think that I do think that they are just another competitor when it comes to a landscape of both the nimble and the giants really all kind of rushing toward population health and analytics and data-driven uses in healthcare.
I mean,
agree.
Go
ahead, Stephanie.
We should point out, that's another point, is that basically companies are trying to develop the tools that will be animal care organizations, you know, for the shift to population health. And obviously all of that is still in the early stages, but you know, the more data you can work with, the more analysis you can do, and maybe the more patterns you can see that go towards helping ACOs actually work, because you know, for them to work, they have to be able to get, you know, between
We're going to have a conversation about with the Philadelphia government about the Wi-Fi in that city. I'll just say this. I think that well, let's look ahead. Here's what's interesting is that last year IBM Watson decided to wait till HIMSS to make its giant announcement that it was becoming IBM Watson. It was making these two buys. It was partnering with Medtronic and J&J and so on and so forth. But now they announce it in February, right? Which tells me maybe there are even bigger announcements at HIMSS. You know, perhaps a cloud-based EMR,
or they don't want to get lost in the noise. They're not making an announcement, or they don't want to hog the spotlight, or there's a gentleman's agreement between some companies that they don't want to. There's a lot of things. By the way, this is my 15th HIMSS coming up, so
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if I win anything other than, you know, maybe some time at a rehab clinic.
Well, let me ask this: what if you were Watson now? So we've talked about what Watson has done, and we've talked about both, you know, some promising pilot projects where there's tangible information. We've talked about these big acquisitions which showcase the information that Watson is collecting. But if you were, you know, what are we going to see, or what should we see from Watson Health to make it meaningful in healthcare? And Neil, we'll start with you.
Okay, first of all, I want to just correct one thing that I had said earlier. Nant Health's acquisition of a month and a half ago was Navinet. I misstated who it was. Now, as far as IBM goes, I did interview their Watson Health chief general manager, Deborah DeSanzo. Actually, no, I did not interview her. I wrote up an interview that she did with somebody else. I'm looking at it here. She said that partnerships are going to set them apart from others. You know, they have one.
Because no one else does partnerships, right?
Right, because nobody does partnerships, right. Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York has redesigned. Well, they taught Watson the. So,
but Neil, what would you do? Like, what will make Watson different and better? What should it do this year to really make a deeper contribution to health? when we're talking about them for their 3rd birthday in April.
Right. Yeah. Show me some results. Show me some results. Clinical improvement, cost savings, better population health. One of the 3 pillars of the triple aim. Show me some results. Even better, have it published in a peer-reviewed journal.
Stephanie, do you think that's going to happen? And Stephanie, what do you think too? What would you like to see out of Watson in the next 12? While Stephanie is thinking, I will tell you.
A profit.
Here we go. A profit.
Oh! I would like to see a profit. Profit.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? A profit.
There you go.
I think that echoes the intent. That echoes what a lot of people say. See IBM move totally out of the space of this and to Watson Health, because I think it'll be a lot. I think it's got its foot in the past and its foot in the future, and I think that creates a lot of potential.
I'd like to point out that Philadelphia is the world headquarters of Comcast.
Yes, it is.
And yet we cannot get a solid, hard line out of that city. Stephanie Baum,
we all struggle
in healthcare.
Yeah.
We can't hear from her so often.
We all struggle.
On?
I think the solution is not to have me on MedHeads.
Oh.
Well, look, I think that I mean, this is going to sound weird because I kind of said it. I mean, making a year of acquiring the pieces and parts you need to make a difference is not a bad year, right? It's a game plan. And I think that if there's anything we can take away is that that Watson knows that it has a receptacle that if given information can do something with it, but they probably also realize they don't have enough. And I actually don't know what enough is when it comes to knowledge and data and Watson, right? I mean, my prediction at the end of last year was that Watson would go ahead and buy a Validic and an Athena Health to simply do the same thing that it's been doing with Merge and Truven now, and that's to gobble data and information. And maybe they'll just announce those 2 deals at HIMSS.
I just don't think. See, I don't think Athena's in play because I think Jonathan Bush is just having too much fun doing it. And he doesn't want to get out. Now, maybe if somebody throws enough money at him, he would. But
that was mild. That was mild tongue in cheek. What I really think is, though, I think that if this has been a year of loading up on data so they can do something with it, I think to your point, Stephanie will come back in a second. That we need to see something beyond a pilot, that there could be some kind of product, some kind of deliverable beyond analytics, and a case study that actually does show clinical results. And I think that's what's really going to come out of this. I mean, they've gotten Truven alone, the customers alone in that company, are amazing. So I think that's one of the key things that we should see in the next 12 months. Yeah,
well, I think as big as the $2.6 billion figure is, I think the more impressive number is the 4 petabytes of data.
Well, but I mean, so my brain has 4 petabytes of data. I don't do anything with it, and that's the problem with it. So I mean, IBM Watson Health has 4 petabytes of data. What's it going to do with it? Is it going to, start a, hey, let's start another pilot project that's going to go nowhere around, diabetes in your car, or are we going to do something with it and make some kind of meaningful change, right?
Yeah.
If I had only used all the brain data, I wouldn't be here. I would be running Watson, but I'm not. Right.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's about using the data, not just owning or the knowledge and suing it. Stephanie is just joined us again, and it's the perfect time. The way we wrap up MedHeads is to go around the horn and talk about the stories that we thought were the most interesting this week in the business of healthcare. And so, Neil, talk to us about the story you thought was the best.
Yeah, I thought the interesting one was the Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center incident in Los Angeles. This is a hospital that had its IT system hijacked by ransomware on February 5th, and it took 10 days to get the computer system back on. There were initial reports that hackers had asked for $3.6 million in bitcoins, 9,000 bitcoins, probably to avoid tracing, and that's what the point of Bitcoin is, I think. It turned out that they did pay a ransom, but it was much smaller. It was 40 bitcoins or $17,000. But the fact that their IT system was offline, completely offline for 10 days, really is a problem. But there's a bigger problem here in that the company or the hospital's CEO said, well, no patient care was compromised. Everything went smoothly except for the fact that we had to do things on paper, and we're getting back to our mission of providing excellent quality care. Except if you dive deeper into the numbers, you can see that they're not providing excellent quality care. They're a mediocre at best hospital. And you can say all you want about, we're dedicated to quality care, but now that we're starting to get a little more transparency, still not as much as we need, but there are bad hospitals out there, and I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to say that Hollywood Presbyterian is not a place that I would want to be if I were suffering some life-threatening condition.
Okay.
They were rated a D by Leapfrog Group in the most recent survey.
They should spend money on getting better. Stephanie,
Yes.
what was your favorite story of the week?
It probably was Amada Health's move to launch a clinical trial of its prevention app, which is aimed at people with obesity-related chronic conditions like diabetes and heart failure and heart disease, I should say. And basically, it developed this app a while ago, but now now it's applying this to underserved populations, and it's added a few different features to make it available or more relevant to people that either are on Medicaid or don't have insurance, or I guess those are the main groups. And it has things like it has a bilingual setting, so people can read it, can use it in Spanish or English. It's more akin to people's resources in their area, particularly in the matter of their food and diet. And so it's more relevant, and I think it's important because we write a lot about technology solutions to address this whole area of people with multiple chronic conditions, how to get them to be more adherent, but in ways that fit into their lifestyle and just makes their life easier. But often the people that get overlooked in those areas are people who kind of need this technology the most in some ways. So it's nice to see a health technology company, digital health company like Amada Health, kind of addressing that population, and in a way where it's trying to get clinical validation that what they're doing is actually relevant and working for that group of people.
No, that's really true. I mean, I think my favorite story of the week is actually it was an opinion piece published by one of our what we call Med Citizens, our guest columnists on MedCity News. It was called "A Digital Health Dilemma: How Healthcare Ruins Text Messaging." And honestly, there's probably a ton of clinical evidence that text messaging is some of the simple and most effective ways to medication adherence and other things. But when you see what happens to a text message when kind of churned through the hospital bureaucracy, this is one physician gives his insight as a radiologist on how a health system, uses and abuses text messaging and just, makes it useless. And makes it an annoyance and something that as a physician you wouldn't want to use, and becomes worthless. It becomes a check-off on a meaningless box, and it really just ruins the opportunity that technology creates. And so often we hear about the ideas, but we don't get to get behind the scenes and look at an implementation. And so I loved how Michael Kirsch, the author, really gave an insider's look at how badly healthcare can execute some of the most simple and effective technologies out there. Anyway, well, I want to thank Stephanie Baum from Philadelphia, battling the Comcast internet connections, to join us on MedHeads, and Neil Versel in Chicago. Neil and Stephanie will both be at HIMSS. We'll be talking a lot about HIMSS in the coming weeks, as you can imagine, the centerpiece for health IT in the year. Thank you all very much for tuning in, and look forward to speaking to you again in another edition of MedHeads.